And here they go. Cool, cool, cool. All right, I think we're live. So hello, welcome everyone. Good afternoon or evening, depending on where you are calling from, or potentially morning if you're an international student. My name is Varick Harris. I am one of the assistant deans of admission here at Reed College, and this is the Reedies Reflect panel. So over the course of the next 45 minutes, I'll be joined by 4 or 5 current students at Reed, where they're going to talk to you all about the process they went through in applying to Reed, as well as everything like that. So to start us off, I'll let each of our panelists introduce themselves. And just all I'm really asking from you all is name, what year you were in school, what round you applied when you did apply to Reed, and then where you're originally from. So, Gabri, I'll let you start.
My name is Gabri. I'm a rising senior English major. I'm from Hawaii, but I was born in Richmond, Virginia. Wait, what else? What is the other information? Oh, I applied early decision. I think that's it.
Andrew.
Hi everyone, my name is Andrew. I'm a rising junior studying environmental studies and economics. I applied early action and I'm from Minnesota.
Annika.
Hi, my name is Annika. I use they or she pronouns. I applied from Arizona in RD, so not rough draft, regular decision. I'm a rising studio art junior. And is that all the information?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, Arthur, your turn.
Hi everybody, I'm Arthur, originally from Dayton, Ohio. I'm a rising junior computer science major, and I also applied regular decision.
So these are the experts in the room, probably more expert than I am since I'm, just an old man at this point. But I do want to know, like, the students that are joining us today, or high school students that are joining us, we would like to know where you all are coming from. So there is a chat function in Zoom. If you take your mouse and kind of hover it around beneath my face, click that chat button, and if everybody could enter into the chat just their name, where they're calling from, and then what year you are in school, that would be extremely helpful, just so we know approximately who everyone is. And then we'll dive into asking the current Reed students some questions. South Carolina, Concord, Massachusetts, Sacramento, Santa Barbara, Palo Alto, Tennessee. I'm from Nashville, by the way. New Delhi, another person from Palo Alto, Austin, Texas. Gresham, it's not that far away. New York City, Seattle, Georgia, Alaska, yo, Oman. Cool. Bellevue, Washington. So, pretty diverse, at least geographic group of students here today. So glad you could all join us. I'll go ahead and kick things off. And this is a question for all of the current Reed students to answer. And we'll go, same order as introductions. But this is something that obviously I think is on everyone's mind right now, especially considering that we're not able to go out and directly be visiting campuses right now. But when you were in these high school student shoes, how did you figure out the campus culture that you were looking for, that you were excited about? And more specifically, how did you go about figuring those things out without directly visiting campus? So Gabri, we'll start with you.
Let's see. I looked up as many pictures as I could of like Reed to kind of get a visual of what Reed looked like. And then there was actually like one other person from my high school who had gone to Reed, so I had contacted her to kind of ask what her opinion of Reed was. I think she was like the first person from my high school to ever like apply, get accepted, and attend Reed. And yeah, so she was also just like reaching out to people who went to Reed to kind of get an idea.
So I actually did pretty much the same thing. Um, there was only one student who was the year above me who applied, got accepted, and went to Reed. And was the first person at my high school to do so as well. And I talked to them about like the culture. And I think the thing that really like kind of convinced me was the fact that the Reed community is made up of so many different people. However, we're all like we all have this collective appreciation for like learning and community, which I think really encapsulates the Reed spirit.
I feel like I don't have perhaps the most informative answer because I feel like a lot of my college experience or my college application experience was just winging it. But definitely what I was looking for when I was first looking at colleges was like what kind of philosophies and what kind of like what ethos did they espouse that sounded really like appealing to me. So definitely like when I was in high school, I went to like a very like very competitive, very like STEM focused high school, and I was looking for a place where like students like cared about learning for the sake of learning, where they really cared about what they studied and it wasn't all about the grades and all about the rankings, all about where you're going to go to next. And I feel like just the like the stuff that I think mostly the admission office put out, like the writings and the essays and stuff that I found on the website just kind of spoke to that for me. And that's what made me really interested in the first place.
It's similar to Annika. My approach to college was very informal, but I will say that in preparation and kind of deciding between Reed and some other schools, not only looking up stuff about like what campus looked like and things of that regard, but what the city of Portland was like. And I learned that there's a lot of really weird, really interesting, and really fun things about the city of Portland. And the last thing that kind of sealed the deal when I got down to my like last two schools was actually just calling and speaking with my admissions counselor, and we talked about like job opportunities and how Reedies work with like applying to internships and things like that, and talking about the culture of the campus. And my high school counselor sat there, looked at me, saw my eyes glow up, and knew that Reed was the place for me.
You really had to hit them with that wholesome story, Arthur. That was really good answers, everybody. Next question I've got for everyone is, what were you nervous about going into college? So what was the thing that was like at the top of your list that was just causing you a lot of anxiety? And what question do you wish you had asked kind of before making the transition into being a college student? And who do you wish you had asked it to?
I think one of the things that I was really anxious about before when I was first looking at colleges, when I got accepted, and even when I was like coming to college was like whether or not I would like belong, whether it would be like my dream fit, whether I'd be like part of the community. And I think that's a really valid thing to be anxious about because I think that's something that I did struggle with when I first got to college. I think it's something that a lot of college students struggle with that I feel like we don't talk about as much when we're talking about like finding your dream school, like finding the place that you belong at. And I think that that's just like kind of the nature of moving into like a brand new community for the first time, and also being like an adult for the first time. So I feel like what really helped me was really like connecting with like students beforehand, like students who were either like also applying to that college, students who had already gotten accepted to Reed, and then like my new classmates once, and like just talking about like those anxieties with them and realizing that like I was not alone, because no matter what you're feeling about the college process, no matter where you are in it, like you are absolutely not alone. There are tons of other people who also feel like I'm the only one who feels like this. And I also feel like it's important to just note that I feel like transitioning to college is like, it's just like a difficult thing to do in general. Like it's just a life experience. And I think like learning to belong is it's a really valuable thing that I've gotten at Reed, and something that I've kind of like grown into. So even now, like Gabri and I, what we do when we're not doing admission stuff is we have a grant with the English department to be studying or like researching belongingness and inclusivity. And I think, and what we found is that a lot of people struggle with that sense of feeling like they belong, feeling like they're smart enough, feeling like they really fit in here. And it's not anything intrinsic about you or your application that decides whether or not like you are a Reedie. It's you learning how to be a part of a community and you finding the people that you connect with, which I think Reed does a really good job of helping you do, by forming those small communities, by bonding around like those shared values of like learning for the sake of learning and like living honorably, that sort of thing. So I feel like it's kind of scary to hear like I was anxious about this and I had a good reason to be anxious about it, but the point is like it's okay. Lots of people everyone goes through that, and it's something that as a community I feel like we work together to like help each other through getting to that point of feeling like you belong, of feeling like you are a Reedie. Does that make any sense? Okay, thumbs up. Oh, I'm sorry. One more answer. What do I wish I'd had when I had these worries before college? I wish that I had actually just reached out and talked to an actual student. I didn't really realize that you could do that when I was applying to colleges, even though I am now one of those students. So like whatever it is that like you're worried about, or like you just want to ask about, or you just want to connect, like that's 100% what we are here for and what we love to do. It's our favorite thing on the job. Just talking to students like you guys about like the real deal, about what college is actually like. So like never be afraid to reach out for this college or for any other institution. I promise you're welcome to.
I think a big
sorry, Arthur, you can go first.
I think a big thing for me was just the fact that I didn't have the opportunity to visit campus, so I'd never really been to the state of Oregon at all, or anything like that, and just being nervous about going to a new place that was so far away, which for me, a little nervous, but it was mostly just really exciting. And going back, a lot of the things around that could have been solved if I had taken better advantage of being able to reach out to people like us who are here to answer questions for newly admitted Reedies. Things like transitioning from a different state, or what classes are like, and things like that. Just being able to take advantage of the current student perspective is something that I would recommend, not only just at Reed, but wherever you may end up. Find current students and ask them all the questions you can, because they've been in your shoes before.
Honestly, I have nothing to add besides that those are the two things that I had to say. Like, those are my answers as well. I really think that a lot of Reedies come in with imposter syndrome. I'm sure if you haven't heard of it, basically, like Annika said, the feeling of not belonging. I thought that I was not smart enough to be here, and I really had that mentality for honestly the first semester that I was here, and I was like, oh well, like I guess it'll get better. But like after just talking to my professors and my peers and like staff members, I like really realized that everyone is here for their own reason, or everyone has their own strengths and their own weaknesses, and that really is what makes like the Reed community so great, is that everyone's so passionate and, you know, good at different things. And that's what makes us all like work good together. And I would say academically, you know, I just am not the person to know everything right when the professor says it. It takes me a while, but I think that's like just the way I am. And that's like the nice part, is because I have so many other like peers that are so willing to help. So that was really much, that was a lot of that was a tangent, but you know, hyping the Reed community up. And I have nothing else to add for the second question, but yeah.
I really like second everything that everyone else has said. I think a big worry of mine was like I had gone to this really tiny high school and I was worried like, and they had gotten like AP accredited after I left. So like I wasn't coming in with like AP credits and stuff. So I was worried that that would like set me back, or like I would have missed out on high school learning things that like everyone else would have already had. But I think it's just important to know like everyone's coming from all over with like a ton of different like backgrounds and experiences, and like I don't know, like there is some imposter syndrome at first, but you kind of have to work through it by like getting to know people, talking to professors, and like eventually like you will get to a spot where you're like, okay, I think I belong here. Like I feel comfortable here. Yeah.
Okay, so the next question that we'll be answering is, how do you wish your parents had supported you while you were going through this process? I'm gonna let someone else answer first, since I went first last time and I tend to talk a lot, so.
I guess I came from, so I am the child of two immigrant parents. So they did not have the traditional kind of college experience in the US, and they didn't get their degrees until I was, you know, a teen. So how I wish they supported me, I honestly, depending on your parents, a lot of parents I know in the college process are very overbearing, and you know, which isn't a bad thing, but sometimes you just have to realize that these are the 4 years that you're going to spend and not the 4 years that they're going to spend. And really just like making sure that the communication between you and whoever's helping you out with the college process is kind of like, um, you know, it's like, it's a two-way street. And I think communication is definitely the thing that's most important with parents.
Kind of adding on to that, neither of my parents have college degrees, so they don't like, especially when I was just before either me or my brother had gone to college, they didn't have really good idea of what college actually was like and what it was for and what it demanded, but they were very insistent that like we both go get our degrees, because they didn't. And this means that my parents were very, very focused on the process of me getting into college, but not so much on what came next, like what I was going to do at college, how I was going to be supported, that sort of thing. And I think like in retrospect, if they had just had more information and had been in like a better place to do so, I feel like being supported to not only try to get into the best college possible, like the most selective college possible, and go into the most like lucrative possible program or degree, and then just like figuring it out from there. I feel like it's a lot better to spend time with your parents talking about like, here's where I'm at. This is like the kind of environment that I feel like I might thrive, like not only academically, but also just like emotionally, physically, like where will I be happy? Where will I be able to be successful? And what might I need once I get there to make that happen? I feel like that would have prepared me a lot better for getting to college and going through this whole kind of like circus of like figuring out like, oh my God, what am I actually going to study now that I'm here? How do I like figure out how to do college? How do I deal with being like an adult for the first time, obviously? And I feel like focusing more on like kind of trying to stress like the importance of like your well-being and your ability to succeed and thrive to your parents might help you have like more productive conversations. Gabri and Arthur, do you also want to answer this question, or do you want to move on to like a student question?
My big thing would definitely just touching in with communication. Both of my parents had experience with school, but I think the transition of going to school out of state and things like that propose a lot of new challenges that were pretty hard to talk about. So just starting that conversation with parents early and coming to them and just knowing that there's going to be a lot of circumstances where there's things that neither you nor they have seen before, and that's okay. And that's why there's plenty of resources at all these different schools to help out people in a variety of different situations. And it all really just starts with having open and frequent communication.
I agree with all that. I don't know if there's like anything much more that I could add. I was definitely like, I'm gonna go do this and like take charge and like not gonna rely on my parents to help me figure out how to do this. And so I feel like I should have been like more like talking to them about this is stressing me out and this is why I'm really stressed out senior year. So like, I don't know, don't be afraid to tell your parents that you're really stressed and overwhelmed with the college process, or like reach out to like a college counselor to talk about that as well, because it is like a stressful time. Lots of things are happening.
This isn't necessarily like super related to the question, but because I do have to leave halfway through the session and this reminds me of it, there is one thing that I do like to say is that, especially because my parents were so focused on like, and so they put like a lot of pressure on just like getting into a good school. I feel like I spent a lot of my time in high school like trying to craft the perfect application and trying to like build this like polished, shiny version of myself that colleges would want. And now that I'm a college student and B, someone who like interviews prospective high school students, I feel like the best advice I can give is to do not worry that much about like polishing your application. Focus on like pursuing the things that genuinely like make you happy and things that you want to spend your time doing, and just like focusing on yourself as a person, because that comes through so much more than you might think in an application. And now like I spent all of high school doing like STEM stuff, trying to like prepare for like a really like lucrative career or whatever after college. And I ended up a studio art major in college, and I'm gonna be fine. And I know that now, but now all I wish is that I had just given myself the freedom to do the stuff I was really interested in doing a long time ago. That's my take.
I definitely have to apologize. I'm sorry. This is kind of the hard part about working from home, is that you never know when they're going to be doing landscaping right outside your window. So thanks for, Annika, thank you definitely for stepping up and kind of guiding things in my at least vocal absence. Also know you have to run off to another meeting in 5 minutes. Cool. So at this point, I think it would be really great if we started diving into questions from our participants. So if you have any questions, everybody, please feel free, just drop them in the chat box. And we'll definitely try and get through as many of them as we can in the next 20-ish minutes. But the first question up, coming from Nora, is would you recommend connecting with current students through the admission office's page? And is there a specific way to chat? Just curious, because I don't know any Reed students personally. I'll let whoever wants to, you can go ahead and give the best answer to that one.
Yes, I highly suggest it. The Reed admission office, especially us student interns, are a great way to connect with current Reed students, as we are current Reed students. Especially now that we're all virtual, we have a lot of different events. We have a lot of different like options in which you can talk to us. We have like an email inbox that you can email us questions at writerreedy@reed.edu, or like you can set up one-on-one meetings. So, you know, it's over a Zoom call, so you can ask us any questions that you want. Am I missing any other visit options that we have? No, I think those are the two big ones. Yeah. So I highly suggest doing that.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, I definitely also just add on, like, we're stuck at home just like the rest of you all. And so we're also kind of like, oh my God, I would love to interact with anyone. I think it's like, that's a sentiment I'm feeling. That's also a sentiment like our student workers are feeling for the admission office. So we're definitely excited to connect with you. You shouldn't feel like, you know, you're bothering us with any questions you have. Next up, as an individual who has grown up with immigrant and or foreign-born parents, how would you describe your cultural experience and climate at Reed thus far? Do you feel that there are certain aspects of Reed culture that help you feel included and welcome, as well as any things that you'd like to see improved or changed?
I guess as the student of, the child of two immigrant parents, I definitely think that I would say our student body has about 30% of students who identify as I self-identify as being a person of color or students of color. And coming into Reed, I knew that generally the POC community was not as big as I wanted it to be when I was doing my original college search, but I kind of didn't let that interfere with my college choice because I knew that the Reed community was so strong, in which I could find, people who, identified as a POC as well, and kind of building that community, but also just like having those resources like our Multicultural Resource Center has been really helpful just to kind of introduce me to other POCs on campus. I'm a Hmong American, so there isn't any Hmong students at Reed currently, from my knowledge. So I took it upon myself rather to, like teach my peers about like my culture. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I have appreciated about the cultural climate at Reed, is because everyone is so open to learning new things. Does anyone else have anything to add?
Maybe I might add something actually. I'm definitely like not, my parents aren't, foreign born or aren't immigrants. But, I am like a Black student, grew up in Tennessee, which at times can feel like a foreign place compared to Portland, Oregon. And so it was definitely like a big adjustment in some ways, kind of like what Andrew was saying was like, I wasn't used to being in spaces where like I truly felt the fact that I was a minority on campus or in like buildings and stuff like that. But what I can say about my experience at Reed is that the student body as a whole is, and like has always been, like through my time there and continuing, like very, I don't know, very much willing to like give space, and not only give space but like create new space for marginalized voices to kind of speak up. That was something that I always felt was pretty powerful about this place. Speaking of general campus climate, the next question is, what would you say Reed culture is like? And then what, according to you, are the best things about the Reed community? So I'll leave this one for Annika and Arthur.
I'll start off on this one. One of my favorite things about Reed culture, I would say, is pretty common amongst most all Reedies, is Reedies are typically really passionate people, and whether that's their passion is for the thing that they're studying, or like if they are a collector of something, or say they're really into a specific artist or a specific game or something, Reedies have really good conversations about the things they're interested in. And this leads to you having a lot of fun talks about things that you typically don't really look into. Like, I'm not a person that in my free time usually has like a lot of conversations about religion or such, but on campus I've had multiple conversations with people that, not necessarily like in a preachy way or anything like that, but just talking about like the history of it, the concept of it, and like what it's meant in different cultures and things like that. And I don't know, it makes everyday life a little bit more interesting to me to know that everyone around me can have just really fun and engaging conversations about most anything.
I would say that like going back to what I was looking for when I was still like in the initial college search, like the values that really drew me to read are what like continuously exceed my expectations. I think because of how they evolve as read grows, and also how my interaction and my interpretation of them like evolve over the course of my time here. So like I feel like that the big things that define read for me are, which I just said these earlier, but like the honor principle, the way that our community like functions, like the closed community, and the academic culture of like prioritizing learning, like living the life of the mind. And I feel like time and time again, like the way that those values like come out of the community to me, like I feel like everyone kind of interprets those like values in their own way, and that creates like a really kind of ever shifting, evolving culture, but something that like we all can kind of come together on certain points. So I feel like I think being in classroom environments where we can put aside like ego and kind of stuff that like definitely drove me in like earlier parts of my education, and being able to like step up and say like, oh, I was wrong about this, but I'm still going to be continue being a part of this conversation because it's important that I learn. Being able to do that both within the classroom and outside of the classroom, whether it's talking about like social justice issues or if it's talking about the Iliad, is something that like I really feel like read forces you to learn almost, and that's something that I really, really value about like the environment here. Sorry, the question specifically was, I'm scrolling up to find it. What would I say read culture is like? What according to you are the best things about the read community? I think that's sort of like, that's a kind of vague answer. That's a broad answer. But I also say that I feel like there is a genuine care for one another just on account of like us being ready, like us being a part of the same community, us sharing these values. And I feel like a good example of that is like, we have a really, really strong consent culture at Reed. So no matter what environment you're in, whether you're actually on campus or not, I feel like I'm taken care of by the people around me, and I feel like I do the same for others. So like even if I'm off campus, like by a few miles, I'm at like maybe a party on a weekend, and I'm like not doing okay, I'm like sitting on a couch or whatever, or I look dehydrated, there's always going to be like 5 people walking up to me being like, hey dude, are you good? Do you need a ride home? Do you need some water? Like, do you want to talk? Are you okay? Because I feel like we really do look out for each other, even if we don't know one another personally. Which is kind of a little thing, but something that I really just genuinely love about Reed. On that note, I do have to sign off for now. I really enjoy these panels, so I hope I get to see some of you guys again. But again, like email me at reed@reed.edu, or if you would like sign out for a one-on-one, I would love to talk to you guys some more. And I hope you enjoy the rest of this panel.
Bye, Annika.
Bye. I'm just reading the thank you. Thank you, Heidi. It's really nice.
Cool. Well, next question, pretty quick, pretty easy question, which is, what is your favorite place on campus?
The canyon, best place, objectively.
I would say the Performing Arts Building is just very beautiful to look at from the outside and the inside. And I like to play instruments in there, so I feel like that's a no-brainer for me.
I would say any of the 3 coffee shops on campus, just because I really like coffee, and I also think they're really good spots to like sit and do work.
Yeah, all those answers are great. When I was thinking about this question for myself, I actually hit like each of your answers. I was like the canyon, and I was like, oh, well, there's also the Performing Arts Building, which is really nice to just like exist in. But then Gabri, you're also right. Like there's 3 coffee shops on a campus of less than 1,500 students, but we're also in Portland, Oregon, so it only makes sense. Next question is, what's something that you all wish you knew about Reed during the admission process?
I wish I knew Well, I feel like I only know this because I'm involved with the admission office now. But Reed is very holistic when looking at applications. They really want to like find your story in the way that you tell it. You know, for example, if you're looking at grades, I feel like in my experience, like my grades are pretty good, but they weren't the best. And I was like, wow, like no one's gonna take me. But it's a thing where, you know, they want to see if there's a story within like trends, for example. And you know, essays are very important. And I think counselors do a great job at kind of like seeking out what you're passionate about, what you're interested in, and kind of helping you through that process.
I second Andrew's response. I really don't have anything else to add. I just really agree with that.
Same.
All right. Next up, we've got, can you talk about your experiences with your professors and advisors? What have your experience with both of those groups of people been like?
As
Oh,
as for advisor, so when in our class, apparently there's like a bunch of potential computer science majors when we came in. So there's only, at the time, there was only a few CS professors. So they had to drop off the overload students into another department for advisors. And my advisor was from the theater department. So he wasn't, at the time, too familiar with the setup of things, but he worked really hard and kept open communication with me to make sure that I was on top of things, that I was scheduling my classes right, that everything was set up. And one of the most crucial times for your advisor is when you're like declaring your major and getting ready for things like that, because there's a lot of paperwork, and if you're switching to a department that's not the same department as your advisor, it can be a little tricky. But I would say that it was really beneficial for me to have him because he kept really good communication with me. And professors, my experience with the Reed professors I've enjoyed almost all of them as people as much as, if not more than, what they do within the classroom. A lot of my professors have been really good about letting their personality out into the work they're teaching. And this is in math class, this is in creative writing class. And I think that that's really cool. And they're not afraid and honestly pretty excited to talk about the things that they've done outside of being a professor. And it feels really warming and brings that relationship that much closer because you get to know them as people too.
Really, I agree with everything Arthur said. I've had the same advisor since when I started at Reed, and I absolutely love my advisor. She's very sweet. I do know that I have to set aside like an hour of time to go see her because I'll get my questions answered, and then she'll just want to chat. And so like I can't have work or something that I have to go to afterwards because I will be late. And so like it's really nice to just be able to go into this like professor's office and chat with them, not just about school, but also about like how am I doing at Reed, you know, like what classes am I doing, do I like it, you know. And then the professors are really great. I think they really care about their students. A story that I like to tell is my Hume 110 conference leader. She like pulled me aside one time and she was like, okay, it's starting to get cold. Do you have a good coat? Like, are you prepared for Portland winter? And I just thought that that was very sweet to like check in to make sure that like I was prepared for winter. You know, so like that's just a good example of like the professors really do care about their students.
As Gabri and Arthur said, I agree with everything they said. Just to add, I would definitely say, so kind of similar to Arthur, I came in as a biology major, and I had a chemistry advisor, so that's not too different. So it's still more STEMmy, but it was just not like my intended field of study. But we would talk for like, 15 minutes about like school, and then he he would go on and on about like bike routes I should take and like places I should eat. And we talked for like an hour, and afterwards I didn't even realize how long it was. And I was like, I got all these texts. I'm like, oh, where are you? Where are you? And I was like, oh my gosh, I just got out of my meeting. And this was like the first meeting that I had with him during orientation week. So that was really nice to know that they like really want you to kind of feel comfortable and welcome to the Reed community and just Portland in general. And so once I declared so after my freshman year, I wanted to do environmental studies. So I found a different professor as my advisor, which is very easy to do because you're assigned an advisor for your first year. And my current advisor ended up also being one of my professors this past year. So that's like also a bonus, you know, building a connection with them outside of the classroom, but also inside the classroom. And they really get to know you super well. A quick story I like to tell with my Hum 110 professor is that she actually really introduced me to the idea of interdisciplinary studies. So I have always had like a love for the natural sciences, but she was like, you know, like I can tell you're enjoying like analyzing these like texts and things like that, which I never thought I would be quote unquote like good at. But I really found a new love for that. And that's why I switched to ES, because it combines the natural and the social sciences. And also I've been to both, like literally like 4 professors' houses for dinner. So it's super nice. That just kind of is indicative of the Reed like student faculty relationship. It's more like a camaraderie rather than like a typical student teacher relationship.
Thank y'all. I will say here, we are starting to run a little bit short on time. So what I'm going to start doing is trying to combine questions together. And then we'll take like 2 responses, 2 relatively short responses from each. But first combined question is, how often do you get to go into Portland, and what are the things that you do? And also, what is the best time of year to be in Portland?
I definitely think that my peers are more active than me on the front of exploring the city of Portland, so I'll leave that for them. But in my experience, the best time to be in Portland, the best time to be on Reed campus is probably like the middle of the spring, leaning more towards early, because that's when everything starts blooming. The campus just looks more alive. People are hanging out outside more, and it's like the difference between the campus in like February versus March and early April. You would think it's 2 totally different worlds, and it's really beautiful to see things come to life like that.
I'll help answer the first question. I would say I go into like downtown Portland, maybe like once every like 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks. But because, like, that being said, it's because I go more into like the areas around Reed, because there's like neighborhoods at, like, if you go in each direction within Reed, it's like really cute because there's a lot of like shops and restaurants and cafes and things like that. So I spend most of my time like in the surrounding area, and it's super accessible to get to. I really love the food scene in Portland. I talk about this all the time. And Gabrielle and I were just talking about this morning because we love like eating and going to like places. And I really, honestly, I had a dream about going out to eat yesterday because I haven't been out, you know, because of the current world state. And I was like, why am I dreaming about going out to eat? But it's because I just love the food scene in Portland.
Speaking of food, there's also a question in here: is how is the food on campus? I'll answer that. I don't know. I eat on campus as a staff member. It's good. Obviously, it's like it'll never be as great as like going off campus and getting a meal. But the like dining hall service that Reed has, Bon Appetit, they are really good at having like tons of options for tons of dietary restrictions. And they actually try. It's definitely not, you know, like a high school cafeteria sort of thing where you're eating, I don't know, like dry hamburgers and mystery meat rib sandwiches and stuff like that. It's definitely a much more preferable experience. And like they try to source things locally and do all kinds of great things like that. Next question is going to be, I guess, next combination of questions. Could you describe Reed in one word and tell us why you chose that word, as well as, let's see. At times, does it feel as though Reed may be too small?
I feel like this is a cheesy answer because we talk about the Reed community so much, but I really would say I would describe Reed as community. Not only within the classroom, but outside of the classroom, not only with like your peers, but also with faculty and staff. So I think that is really indicative of what Reed is. And to answer the second question really quick, I came from a high school with about 500 people in my graduating class, so 2,000 in total, which is bigger than Reed. I would say at times it does feel too small, but at the end of the day, I don't know everyone on this campus. However, I am familiar with everyone's faces, which is nice because there's always someone new to meet.
I agree with Andrew's word, community. And then I never personally feel like the campus is too small. I really like being able to like walk to class and wave at people and say hi. And yeah, I don't know. I went to a really small high school, so that might be why I have that opinion.
Another good word I would say for Reed is probably independence or something along that line, because the student autonomy at Reed is really crazy to think about, especially when talking to people at other schools. And whether that's the ability to do what you want on campus or to have involvement in administrative things and just how the campus is run, it's a lot. And Reedies have a lot of power that they can take advantage of at most any time. And I think that that's really cool. I also came from a relatively small high school, and pretty similar to what Andrew was saying is I feel like I'm pretty familiar with most 90% of the campus, but I don't know everyone. So it's comforting to know that like if I see someone else at like a grocery store or something, oh, we go to the same school, yada, yada, yada. But it's through 2 years, I don't think I'm gonna get bored from a lack of like new people to talk to, because there's still that occasional experience where you do meet somebody new and it's fun and refreshing.
All right. Well, we're gonna do one more question, and then we'll have to close it out because I've already kept y'all 5 minutes over when this thing was supposed to end. I know there's still like additional questions that we're going through, but definitely be sure to email those questions to writeareedie@reed.edu. So if there's a question we didn't get to touch on over the course of this presentation, definitely email them to writeareedie. And every like Andrew and Annika and Gabri and Arthur we'll definitely get back to you. But the final question is going to be, what did your overall college list look like when you applied to schools? So did you apply to mostly liberal arts colleges, or did you have a mix of big universities and liberal arts schools? And in addition to that, are there things that you think you've gained from attending Reed that you might not have been able to get somewhere else?
I always love this question because I applied to so many schools, which I don't suggest you do. I applied to 18. That's too much, so don't do that. I applied to like literally every type of college, like liberal arts college, like a large public university, like a large private research universities, because I was just so unsure of what I wanted, and I kind of wanted to pave that path. So I, like pave multiple paths and multiple open multiple doors. So not all liberal arts colleges, and Reed was actually the only school on the West Coast I applied to. So pretty cool that I'm here today. And the second question was, I think like Reed has really given me a space to grow both academically, but also as a person, which also sounds really cheesy, but it's like really true. I think I've really developed just a lot of skills in regards to speaking to people, connecting with people, really deeper on like deeper than the surface level. And like obviously if you would attend like other smaller liberal arts colleges, like perhaps that, you know, you could learn the same thing. But I really think the Reed community fosters such an like an amazing place in which you have the place to do so and kind of become your own person, have your own voice. And I don't think, you know, I really don't think I would be anywhere else. And I would not be here without kind of my Reed experience.
Pretty similar to Andrew. I applied to way too many schools. I think it was like one under, so like 17. But I don't know. I think Reed was the only liberal arts school on the list. Most of them were larger public or private universities. And I find it very fortunate that I ended up in this situation. And I feel like the type of one of my biggest things in searching for a school was being around people that cared about whatever, just being around passionate people. And I feel like I've gotten that and then some at Reed, and it's something that I really appreciate.
I applied to mostly liberal arts school or all liberal arts schools. I just wanted a small school. But I think something that like is really special about Reed is that like the community, because the community is so close, like you're able to learn so much from the students and the professors, like equally so. And then also because you know your professors so well, there are so many like research opportunities or like assistant positions, and your professors, like you call them by their first name, so it's like you are colleagues and all equals. Like it's not doctor or professor, it's Ellen or Maria, you know. And so I just think that that's like this like very cool thing to be able to leave a school kind of like as a colleague to your professors.
All right. Well, unfortunately, that brings us to an end of this presentation. So definitely thank you all so much for joining us. I also invite all of you to please thank our lovely participants, thank our current Reed students for taking time out of their days to be with you. Thanks for just letting us into your homes, joining us in our own. Hopefully all of this was helpful. And again, if you've got more questions or more, anything we didn't get to answer over the course of this session, definitely email writeareedy@reed.edu. Or if, maybe you've got questions that you want me as an alum to email or to answer, you can email me my email. I'll put it in the chat box right now. And then if you've got any questions that you want, your personal admission counselor to respond to you, you can email admission@reed.edu. But with all that being said, stay safe, keep washing your hands, keep engaging in any type of, civil unrest that's currently going on in the world. Black Lives Matter, all that. And thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.